Welcome to today's edition of the Rush 24/7 podcast.
The Facebook killer is dead. The Facebook killer has committed suicide and has assumed room temperature by his own hand, and there are many out there who are saddened by this, only because they so desperately wanted to talk to the Facebook killer to find out why he did it. Could it have had anything to do with the election and the Russians and Trump? And now we'll never know unless he left a secret blog post at Facebook to explain this most recent few days of his behavior. Greetings, my friends. It's great to have you here. Rush Limbaugh on special election day in Georgia. Georgia's 6th District. Great to have you. Telephone numbers 800-282-2882 and an email address lrushbo@eibnet.com. I just learned before the program began that Mr. Ossoff, the Democrat running for the election in Georgia today, cannot even vote today. He can't vote for himself. He can't vote against himself. He can't vote for anybody because he doesn't live there. He doesn't live in the district. He was asked about that. He said, well, my girlfriend, we're going to move there if I win. It's not looking good either. Well, depends on how you look at this. Nate Silver, the left's pre-election poll analyst guru, has pronounced that Ossoff will probably finish with less than 50% of the vote. From the Daily Caller today, Nate Silver dumps cold water on Democrat hopes in Georgia race. Silver hasn't been right in a while. This may not be good news. I mean, when you get right down to it, Silver blew the presidential election. Oh, speaking of, folks, you want to hear something funny? You know, this Hillary book, the book on the Hillary campaign that is out there widely now and circulating, and it's just got incredible detail about just what an absolutely horrible campaign that she ran, how arrogant and condescending she was, even to her own staff. How Obama had to talk her into conceding, that she didn't want to concede. She called Obama to apologize for failing him in her reelection. So goes the story anyway. I'm sure Obama would love for people to think that she did call him. Anyway, the Washington Post has a pre-review of the book, but they are withholding the full-fledged review treatment on this book, which is highly critical of Hillary and her campaign, because they want to wait to find out just exactly what the Russians had to do with making her campaign so bad before they acknowledge the accuracy of the book. I mean, it's incredible. It is literally incredible, the alternative universe these people live in. They literally do create a new reality that's not based in reality whatsoever, and once they create it, they immerse themselves in it. And if the Washington Post is willing to admit that they'll withhold their full review until we find out for sure just what the Russians had to do with tampering the election. In fact, what they're trying to say is it may not have been Hillary's fault at all. She may not have run the bad campaign that the book says. It may well have been the Russians stole the election from her for Trump. And until we know for sure, we cannot ethically comment on this book in form of a full review. So the guns are blazing in a political sense on this election today, the special election for Georgia's 6th District. And I think it's kind of amazing to look at what has happened here. Again, Nate Silver says that it's unlikely Ossoff is going to get to 50% plus one. If he doesn't, it means there's a runoff in June, and he's toast. But there's a little bit more to it than just that. The next highest finisher is probably going to be a Republican woman whose name is Karen Handel. So think about this. The Democrats, Hollywood stars, the rest of the radical left are pouring untold millions of dollars into an effort to keep a woman from being elected to Congress. I mean, if we were like them, that's how we would analyze this. all of this Democrat money from all over the country, and we don't know how much Russian money is involved here. That would require an investigation. Well, if the Russians can tamper with the presidential election, why couldn't they tamper with this one? I mean, if the Russians are that powerful, and now, who knows, maybe the North Koreans are involved. We won't know until if the guy loses. If the guy loses, then we're going to be hearing stories about Russian involvement, stolen voting machines, or the Norks getting even with Trump for sidling up to the Chi-Coms. I mean, once the Democrats go down the road of insanity, they go down. I've got another piece today, an introspective piece about the Democrats. A New York Times reporter, Jeremy Peters, there is no leadership in the Democrat Party whatsoever. It is just a tremendous indictment of where the Democrat Party is. Now, you hear me say that, and I know what you're saying. What do you mean the Democrat Party's in trouble? Rush, have you looked at the media and you see the stories that are out there? And it proves my point. That is, the media that is running the progressive movement. The Democrat Party is just an arm of it today. And the fact that they have no bench and the fact that they have no agenda except oppose Trump, I think is great evidence of my contention here that it's not the Democrat Party's willing accomplices in the media. It's the media's willing accomplices in the Democrat Party. But let me go through some of the stories I have today to give you a preview of part of the program today. Arizona State University class holds protest instead of final exam. A group of students at Arizona State University's Tempe campus decided to protest Thursday instead of taking a final exam in their human rights class, a decision that has been endorsed by their instructor. In fact, the instructor is Angelis Maldonado, professor at ASU, offered her global politics of human rights class an option: take a test or create a group project. They created a group project, which is to protest Thursday. There is Trump Protest Thursday all over America that the left is organizing with 70 usual suspects paid for by 2 or 3 usual suspects. So the professorette at Arizona State Tempe says, hey, if you want to go protest on Thursday, fine. You get an A, you don't have to take the test. From the Daily Caller, university plans to spend thousands training new student revolutionaries. Students at Virginia Commonwealth University are applying for $2,500 awards from a social justice fund, which will finance student projects focused on social justice activism. From Breitbart, Wellesley University's student newspaper threatens students who do not conform to progressive values. Next story, more than 70 liberal groups partnered for anti-Trump tax day protests. David French at National Review, the Battle of Berkeley. This is a story talking in the reviews and discusses the Trump versus anti-Trump factions at Berkeley that resulted in violence, and with the police doing nothing about it for the most part, sitting in their cars while it all went down. Violence and bloodshed, Trump and anti-Trump protesters dueling with one another. From the Politico, Kellyanne Conway calls on Democrat Party leaders to calm violent anti-Trump protesters. From the Washington Free Beacon, media spreads misleading video of Trump supposedly tossing away kid's hat. Have you heard about this? This was the Easter egg roll yesterday, and a little kid came up and asked Trump to sign his hat. And Trump signed the hat and then threw it back to the kid. One camera angle made it look like Trump took the kid's hat, signed it, and then threw it into the crowd away from the kid. Thus, they ran a story that Trump refused to give back to the kid the hat that Trump had signed for him. The media ran with the story all day and all night. It's a giant, big, fat lie. It isn't true. And you may have seen the story, college students vote to make American flag optional. So while we have this story here that the Democrat Party is rudderless aimless, no leaders, no agenda. All the rest of this crap is still happening. All of this progressive, anti-America stuff is happening. How is that? Well, the thing that comes to mind first off is what we talked about a couple of weeks ago, and I'm going to go back to it again today. We had one caller reference it yesterday, and I reviewed just a brief part of it. But this is important to repeat in order to explain all of these things that are going on. Have you seen the poll that says Trump is losing ground rapidly with his supporters because now a majority of Americans view Donald Trump as not keeping his promises, as breaking his promises? It's part of the same polling data that suggests a majority of Americans now favor single payer. Of all the things that Donald Trump might be guilty of, is breaking his promises at the top of the list? Well, maybe if health care is something that you believe he committed to, and tax reform. By the way, the news on tax reform now, no way it can happen before August. And this has brought forth stories from the drive-by media about how the business community is panicking. The business community is panicking because since Trump is failing to move on his agenda of tax reform and failing to reform Obamacare, that there isn't going to be any economic growth this year, and therefore there isn't any economic growth agenda, and therefore all the gains in the stock market since Trump was elected are about to whittle away, and the economy is going to start plunging, all rooted in the fact that Trump doesn't know what he's doing, cannot keep his promises. The vast majority of American people are starting to see the light as represented by the Georgia election, and a vast majority of people voted for Trump now regret it. That's the news narrative of the day that goes along with all of these other stories about leftist protests here, leftist protests there, and it's why I'm going to go back and share with you details from a column by Daniel Greenfield at Front Page Magazine a couple weeks ago. The Civil War is here. I'm going to explain what this all means. I'm going to explain why this is all happening and who it is that's responsible for it. And we're going to figure out what it all means. But very simply, and as a preview or pretext, what is happening here is that the American left, which has taken over the Democrat Party, which is the media, which is higher education, which is Hollywood and the pop culture, simply refuses to accept the authority that the Constitution of the United States is the glue that holds this country together. They simply refuse to accept that authority. They refuse to accept the authority that they lost election. They refuse to accept the authority that Hillary Clinton lost the presidency. They simply refuse to accept when things do not go their way. Their only authority is theirs. The only authority they respect is theirs, and they are about tearing down any other authority. And Mr. Greenfield refers to this, he actually calls it point blank treason. In his piece, The Civil War is Here, and he accuses these people of engaging in actual treason because they are attempting to subvert, destroy, and dismantle the authority that has maintained this country for what it is for over 200 years. So that is going to be a little project we'll get into as the program unfolds. There are news items in addition to all that as well, so we're going to try to cover it all as the program unfolds, as well as Georgia and the 6th District election and what is likely to happen. Your host mildly rebuked at a National Review blog for my interpretation of this. A mild rebuke. And I will explain that as well later in the program. Before we go to the break, I'm going to do this one and get it out of the way. It's a story from the UK newspaper called the UK Express. A survey of 1,000 women. Now, admittedly, this is in the UK, but still. A survey of 1,000 women has found a majority of them prefer reading a book or knitting or engaging in arts and crafts to having sex. Women were given 4 options in the poll that was released today. 4 options to choose their number 1, number 2, number 3, number 4 pref. Read a book was the top at 37%. Have a bath came in second at 26%. Crafting, such as knitting, sewing, etc., 18%. Only 8% of 1,000 women preferred having sex to any of those other 3 activities. Now, this poll was to mark the launch of a novel called Paper Hearts and Summer Kisses by the romantic author Carol Matthews. Found that 77% of women often felt stressed and anxious. The majority of women surveyed said they prefer to have a bath. Found that 36% of the women polled said their stress levels had rocketed in the wake of the events of 2016, including Brexit, Trump's election, and financial worries. So at the center of everything that's going wrong, Donald Trump. No matter where you go in the world, at the center of everything going wrong is Donald Trump. To the point now that women in the UK, only 8% of 1,000 asked said that they would prefer to have sex over any other activity. It reminds me of early training I got in these matters. And it actually confirms the early training I received in these matters. I had the strangest dream last night. I don't know that I can share this one with you, though. I'm probably kind of being mean here to even mention it to you and tease it to you without telling you. But it's one of these. I'm too famous. If I start giving the details of this, it won't just be contained between all you and me. It'll reverberate all over the place out there. I told Snerdley, he's nodding his head. He says, "Yep, you better not do this, because if you start..." I'll just give you the starting point. It was, I can't remember which, either HBO or NBC sentenced me to death, and they carried it out. But that's just the beginning of it. Anyway, but if I go any further than that, I mean, that's not going to warrant any kind of massive... But there are people involved in this. And the detail, I remember the details. It's the most detailed dream I remember ever in my life. I woke up thinking I was still in the body bag. So I checked the email during the break. Don't say it. Don't tell the details of the dream. We can't. No, you die. We don't want to hear that you died. I didn't die in the dream. They tried. I didn't die. But folks, I can't go any further. I really can't. If I weren't so famous, I could easily share you the details, but I'm just too famous. In fact, being so famous is actually becoming a bit of a hindrance in certain aspects of this program. Grab soundbite number 4. This happened on CNN today. Allison Camerata says to the guy, the Democrat running in Georgia, John Ossoff, "Is it true you cannot vote for yourself, sir?"
Well, I grew up in this district. I grew up in this community. No one knew there was going to be an election coming. I've been living with Alicia, my girlfriend, of 12 years down by Emory University, where she's a full-time medical student. And as soon as she concludes her medical training, I'll be 10 minutes back up the street into the district where I grew up. But I want to support her in her career and do right by her.
Right on. So I'm running for election in a district. If I win, we'll come back after she graduates medical school, becomes the meal ticket for the family. But if I lose, we'll stay wherever she wants to go because she's the meal ticket, and I'll go back to doing Pajama Boy commercials. Hi, how are you? Welcome back, Rush Limbaugh, the EIB Network. I know that I'm going to be somewhat repetitive or redundant today, only to those of you who heard the first foray into analyzing the behavior and motivations of the progressive movement at this time, this Trump resistance movement out there. And again, I want to stress that it is not being led by the Democrat Party. Now, I may be splitting hairs on this, but the Democrat Party is following on this. These people represent donors and the lunatic fringe base, and they are largely influencing the Democrats. Not that they need a lot of help, but it's important to understand the players here. The media is running this show. The media is defining the progressive movement and dictating its movements by what it chooses to cover and thus promote. The actual progressive resistance movement is made up of all the usual leftist protest groups. They're the same as the anarchists of 10 years ago. They're the same that have been protesting. It's the same groups. It's the same people funding them. They have an evolving sense of purpose today, which is literally to overthrow this country. This is what we are facing each and every day. It's not just resistance to Trump. Trump winning the election has speeded up their agenda because of a crisis that it created. They fully expected to win in the November elections. They fully expected to have Hillary in the White House, which meant that a more stealth-like takeover of America would be possible, much as it happened during 8 years of Obama. Well, everything was thrown upside down when Trump won, which has created crisis and panic and chaos. And so now the progressive movement, which has not changed its agenda at all, the literal takeover they don't secede, folks. Like California's talking of seceding, they don't secede. They take over. They establish their authority as the only authority. They sweep the Constitution aside. They sweep all of the values and the authority that this country was defined with and by. They sweep them aside and replace themselves as the lone authority to which you must be devoted or else. And so Trump winning the election has speeded them up. And I need to go through this again today. And I'm going to repeat the analogy I made when comparing the modern progressive movement to Sharia Islam. We had a couple of calls on this yesterday telling me how wonderful that analogy was in helping people to understand it. And since there's the fresh stack of news on this front today, I am going to repeat some of it and add additional opinion items of interest to it. And Mr. Greenfield now has a follow-up piece that runs in Front Page Magazine, which I'm also going to delve into, which is headlined, "The Resistance Democrats Are a Terrorist Party. The Democrats have committed to overthrowing our government." Look, I'm splitting hairs here. The Democrats are in the game, but the Democrats are following it. They're more than happy to participate. Don't misunderstand. The Democrats are as much a part of the resistance, just the intellectual firepower and energy and motivation is not coming from elected Democrats. It's coming from outside the party, and the party's been co-opted by it. That is why, and I'm not trying to remove any blame from them. I'm not trying to lessen their responsibility. Please don't misunderstand. I just want to accurately portray this movement and where its intellectual juice and money and energy is coming from. And in this case, the Democrat Party is following it, happily, with some members of the party leading it. But I mean, in general, the party itself they're just sitting around waiting. The stories of introspection involving how the Democrats don't have an agenda other than stop Trump, how they don't have any future leaders, no bench to run. That's all true. And it's their own fault. They never expected to lose in November either. Everybody expected Hillary Clinton to be in office with Hillary appointees all over the cabinet, all over the bureaucracy, and the slow but sure stealth takeover America to continue. And since the Democrat Party lost, since the Democrat Party has lost over 1,000 seats since 2010, other elements of the progressive movement are taking over as the impetus and energy. So just a preview there of what's coming later. Now, back to Georgia 6. I have 3 bites, and we're going to get to the phones on this because we have some people from the district and from Georgia who want to weigh in with local input, which we always appreciate here at the EIB network. I want to start by replaying audio soundbite number 4. John Ossoff, the Democrat candidate, who have the Democrats... You know, everything I told you yesterday about this race has come true today in headlines. In headlines in this story today. Let me find one. Hopeful ABC special election could mean real chance Democrats take Congress. Another headline talks about how this election will prove the country has turned on Trump. They've got it all invested in this election. This election, if this guy Ossoff wins today, I'm just telling you that media narratives starting tonight after the count's official and into tomorrow and the day after that, it's over. The American people have rejected Trump. The Trump presidency is now regretted by a majority of Americans. That's all this election means. Whether it's true or not, that's going to be the narrative. So what happens today in this district is important. This Ossoff guy was on CNN today, interviewed by Allison Camerata. She said, Mr. Ossoff, is it true you cannot vote for yourself?
Well, I grew up in this district. I grew up in this community. No one knew there was going to be an election coming. I've been living with Alicia, my girlfriend of 12 years, down by Emory University, where she's a full-time medical student. And as soon as she concludes her medical training, I'll be 10 minutes back up the street into the district where I grew up. But I want to support her in her career and do right by her.
Wait a minute. If he's only 10 minutes away, so is she. Can she not commute? I mean, this doesn't sound like dedication to the district, if you ask me. Sounds like this guy is being led around by whatever happens to his girlfriend. Well, yeah, our girlfriend's going to medical school. I mean, she's really going to be a doctor. Yeah. And if she gets that done, then we'll move back, and then I'll be able to vote here. But I've always had the district in my heart. I've always loved the district. I've lived here off and on. My girlfriend's only 10 minutes away. Why isn't she commuting so that you can establish residence? It sounds like your dedication, which is fine, but if you want to dedicate to your girlfriend and her career, fine and dandy, but you're not dedicating yourself to the district here. And I think we all know why. The guy's been plucked and chosen to win this seat. Take a look at it, by the way. I mean, why this guy? Why did Democrats pick this guy? This guy doesn't look like Democrats today. Well, I take that back. He looks like Democrats in a couple of ways. But he doesn't look like the America that the Democrat Party wants you to think is the new America. Well, the first thing, he's white. The Democrats have blown off white working class voters. Trump owned them. The Democrats made a strategic decision to own them, disown them, in exchange for a coalition made up of all these different minority and immigrant groups. Why didn't they pick somebody from that cohort? Why didn't they pick somebody from that demographic? Why didn't they go get a person of color or a person from the immigrant community? Somebody been mistreated by ICE or some says, why didn't they get somebody actually representative of their agenda? Why'd they pick some guy and then have him go out and make everybody think he's a conservative? Well, we know the answer to the question. That's the district is that. So the Democrats are engaging in all kinds of false representation, misrepresentation. They're not even being honest about who they are with this guy as candidate. So after he says, well, girlfriend, only 10 minutes away, and after she gets her medical training and we'll move back here and everything's going to be fine, Allison Camerata says, so I guess your point is, you don't live in the district in which you're running, so you won't be able to vote for yourself.
Well, I grew up in this district. I grew up in this community. It's my home. My family is still there. I'm a mile and a half down the street to support Alicia while she finishes medical school. It's something I've been very transparent about. In fact, I'm proud to be supporting her career. And as soon as she finishes her medical training, I'll be 10 minutes back up the road into the district where I grew up.
Mile and a half down the road, 10 minutes up the road. I'm supportive of my girlfriend's career. Well, we don't know that he's mooching off the girlfriend, Mr. Snerdley. It's maybe a hasty. Well, I know it's her place and it's her career as a doctor and so forth, but we don't want to get these hasty generalizations that he's mooching and this kind of stuff. He's actually, well, he may be, but we can't prove it. What we do know is that the guy is literally prostrating himself for the feminist vote. See, I'm a good American man in the year 2016. I'm subordinating what I care about to my girlfriends, and that makes me a real guy. I'm an alpha B. And this is supposed to send chills up the spines of female Democrat voters. This guy's the definition of a real man. Now, he was, let's see. He was born in Atlanta, which is a neat trick to have been raised in Cobb County. He's also, well, he went to private school. Everything about him says the guy's not having any financial troubles of his own. One more bite, and it's a Trump robocall. Republican Party released a robocall. President Trump urging voters to show up and vote today. Here's a portion of that.
Liberal Democrats from outside of Georgia are spending millions and millions of dollars trying to take your Republican congressional seat away from you. Don't let them do it. You can stop the super liberal Democrats and Nancy Pelosi's group, and in particular, John Ossoff. If you don't vote tomorrow, Ossoff will raise your taxes, destroy your health care, and flood our country with illegal immigrants. I need you to get out to the polls tomorrow, April 18th, and vote Republican.
That's the robocall. Trump. Massive numbers of people in the district answering their phones and getting that message. You know, folks, look, it's a bit of a stretch, but isn't it interesting, all of the outside interference here? I mean, you've got Hollywood money, you've got money from the state of California, money from the state of Washington, money from the city of San Francisco. You've got Samuel L. Jackson, a number of Hollywood Democrat actors. And nobody seems concerned about the outside influence. Nobody at all seems bothered by all the influence and money from outside the district, people that don't live there, never going to live there. And yet over here, they about have a cow when they find out that the Russians might be involved in elections. Mr. Limbaugh, are you seriously drawing an analogy between Hollywood? Damn right. A communist is a communist, no matter where the hell they live, folks. You know, folks, this Ossoff guy's 30 years old. He's been dating this medical student for 12 years. Now, I can remember, and I will admit that my generation of baby boomers, now at the upper echelon of generations, but I'm just telling you, it used to be that doing right by a woman meant what? What did it mean? What did it mean? And it may still in some segments. What does it mean to do right by a woman? Right, marry her. Put a rock on her hand. Does that means marry her? Right, okay. That's what, it doesn't mean that anymore. Doing right by a woman means following her everywhere. Well, he's been dating her for 12 years. He's 30. He's been dating her since she was 18. No, I don't have a problem with it. I'm just pointing out, never mind. If I have to explain it, if it's not self-explanatory, I'm not going to waste time on it. It just means it's generationally passé. And I need to get to the phones. I want to start here. I got Tim in Atlanta, who's been holding for a while. I'm glad you did. Welcome to the program, sir. Hello.
Hey, Russ. How you doing? Good to speak with you.
Thank you very much, sir. Great to have you here on the EIB network.
Yeah, I live in Atlanta, and I'm in the 6th Congressional District. And, it bothers me that the Democrats have spent over $8 million on this election, and 95% of the donations are coming from outside of the state of Georgia. And I don't think Ossoff's going to get to 50%. And I was telling your call screener that it's important for the Republicans, the National Republican Party, to gather behind whoever the Republican candidate is. Because our runoff election is going to be on June 20th, so we got about 2 months, and the Democrats are going to need pour more money in these next 2 months just so they need a victory. They need to tell their base, look, we can win an election. And they've gone all in on this election here in Georgia.
Well, let me ask, have you heard or seen any of the Samuel L. Jackson commercials?
No, I read about them, and I read about it. I'm not a huge TV watcher. I hear more of the ads on.
Yeah. I kind of get that. It's kind of lame out there.
Yeah, but I heard he's out there saying that Trump is sexist and Trump is racist, and he's there to target, in my opinion, to the African American to get out their vote to go vote for Ossoff.
Well, it's not just that. I mean, the Democrats are going to be busing people from, who knows, Tijuana, you name it. If they can get them in there to vote, Democrats will be doing it. I haven't seen any commercials either. I've had a lot of people emailing me about them. That basically Samuel L. Jackson is on TV urging, demanding, suggesting, requesting that people vote for Ossoff. And I say, well, why? What would happen if I did the opposite? I mean, the program is permeating the 6th District today. I'm sure eyeballs and ears are glued to radio stations in the district and in the state carrying this program. And I wonder what would happen if I began to electioneer and campaign much as Samuel L. Jackson is doing. Now, I wonder what people would say. You know, Trump's doing it with his robocalls, urging people to, whatever you do, don't vote for Ossoff. I mean, it's hard to pick a Republican to vote for because there's 11 of them out there. And so the real message is, folks, I'm going to just tell you again what's going to happen if Ossoff wins this tonight. And this is irrespective of him, whoever the Democrat would be in this race. The media has the stories written. They're already written and edited, and they are ready to be posted. Democrat wins this seat, and it means Trumpism is over. Trump has been rejected. America has sized Trump up and has decided they made a mistake. The Trump agenda needs to be brought to a screeching halt. This election means that people now regret Hillary not winning. This and more is what's going to accompany Ossoff winning if he does. Keep that in mind. If you haven't voted yet and you're going to vote, you walk into the polling place. Keep in mind what that will do to the psyche of the country if they are able to run those stories tomorrow. And we're off to a rocking start, setting a frenetic pace that will only intensify as the program continues to unfold before your eyes and ears today. Be right back. Don't go anywhere. Hi, folks. Welcome back. Great to have you. Rush Limbaugh, executing assigned host duties flawlessly. Zero mistakes. As we are ensconced firmly in the distinguished and prestigious Attila the Hun chair at the Limbaugh Institute for Advanced anti-leftist studies. 800-282-2882 if you want to be on the program. You know, Georgia's 6th district, there's something weird going on in this district anyway before you even get to this election today. Now remember, Georgia 6 is the district from which Newt Gingrich came. And Newt Gingrich, this district has been in Republican hands since 1979. I think that's longer than any district in Georgia has been in Republican hands, uninterrupted. And, of course, Newt owned it. Major owned it. Now, yet, despite that, Donald Trump only got 48% of the vote there. Hillary got 47%. Now, that is probably why the Democrats think they can win this, that one stat alone. Now, how would you explain that? A Republican, reliably Republican district by massive numbers since 1979. Trump wins it by 1 point, less than 50% of the vote. If I had to hazard a wild guess, it would be that there are a lot of people in that district who are rock-ribbed ideological conservatives who don't believe Trump is one. You might have had a lot of never-Trumpers in that district that voted for Trump anyway, because if I know rock-ribbed conservatives like I know them, they're not going to vote for a Democrat no matter what. But in this case, that was close. That's 1 point in a district the Republicans win in landslides. So that number's probably why the Democrats think they have a chance here. Now, here's more weirdness in Georgia 6. Mitt Romney got 61% there to Obama's 38%. McCain got 62% to Obama's 37%. So something really fishy was going on there with Trump versus Hillary. Why are you laughing in there? You obviously think I'm implying something when I'm not. I'm just looking at the numbers. And it's weird. Well, Romney and McCain support came from the rock-ribbed conservatives, and Trump didn't get them. And some of those people actually voted for Hillary. You think rock-ribbed conservatives? Well, maybe sat it out. That could be. I don't know what the total turnout in the district was last November. We could easily find out. But wait a minute. It could well be that the district has been gerrymandered. Let's look at this. The first election using the new district boundaries was the 2012 congressional election. The Democrats have gerrymandered it somewhat, so the district is not the same as it has been since 1979. But that still doesn't explain Romney beating Obama by such a big margin and Trump just barely squeaking by Hillary. And again, a reminder, Georgia's 6th has been represented by a Republican consistently since 1979. That's the longest in the state of Georgia. This is Carl Vinson's old seat. Carl Vinson is the name of the destroyer Trump sent to the coast of the Norks. Just a little, not the aircraft carrier that's been sent to the nearby coast of North Koreans. So that 1 point Trump win, I'm sure, is why. Now, the thing to remember about this, the Democrats don't care about this Ossoff guy. They don't care about what he is. They don't care about what he's going to do because they know he's going to be a Democrat leadership robot. They don't care about him personally. It doesn't matter a hill of beans. All this guy represents is a chance for the news headlines already written to be published tomorrow. That's it. They don't care personally about this. I mean, they'll make it look like they do, but that's not why they're behind this guy. That's not why Samuel L. Jackson and all these other people are. This one race is about creating a soap opera script or news narrative that will allow the media to say that Donald Trump's presidency is essentially over. That in such a solid Republican district that a Democrat could come in and win a special election means the country has soured on Trump. And what that will be said to mean is the country now realizes it's made a mistake. The country realized it made a huge mistake, and what the voters in Georgia were saying for all of America is stop Trump. Prevent any more of Trump's agenda from being implemented. That's what this election, with the Democrat winning it today in the count tonight, that's what they are hoping to be able to write. Now, I can hear you say, but Rush, it's a congressional district. How can they possibly? Because they can, because they run it. They write the script. They come up with the narratives each and every day. And they've already been running the narrative, in a sense, by all this Trump resistance. When they focus on all the protests against Trump, when they focus on all the riots, when they focus on all the acrimony, when they focus on every agenda, like health care failing, tax reform being delayed, it all goes into the hopper. Trump isn't wanted anymore. Voters realized they made a mistake. They wanted to do this with the special election in Kansas, and they didn't have a chance there because the Republicans held the district by 8%. So now they've moved on to this special election. It's Tom Price's seat. He's now the Health and Human Services Secretary. And this election, if this Ossoff guy wins it, the Democrat winning it, means the Democrats get to write all those stories. Under the umbrella, America has realized it made a mistake. America regrets electing Trump. America wants Trump and Trumpism stopped. America desperate for its country back. All of that, more times than you can count. We have the audio of the Samuel L. Jackson commercial. I actually had this in the roster yesterday, and I didn't have a chance to get to it. This is the version. I don't know how many versions there are, but this is the one that was running on the radio Saturday. It's a Democrat Congressional Campaign Committee. That's the bunch in the House that is tasked with the job of getting Democrats elected to the House of Representatives. They sponsor this ad, radio ad. Samuel L. Jackson.
Hi, I'm Samuel L. Jackson. There's a special congressional election on April 18th. What can you do? Go vote. Your vote goes a long way towards setting things right in this country. Vote for the Democratic Party. Stop Donald Trump, the man who encourages racial and religious discrimination and sexism. Remember what happened the last time people stayed home? We got stuck with Trump. We have to channel the great vengeance and furious anger we have for this administration into votes at the ballot box. Do your friends and family a favor. Hell, do yourself a favor and vote on April 18th and make sure to vote for the Democratic Party.
You hear Ossoff's name in that ad? Didn't hear Ossoff's name. That might have been in the graphic. But there's more than Ossoff running. But it doesn't help the Democrats to split the vote. I think there are 4 Democrats running. Ossoff is one of them. He's polling at 40%. And what they really mean here is vote Ossoff. But I find it fascinating he didn't mention his name. And just tells you he's not what this is about. Ossoff, he's just a vehicle. He's just essentially going to be a robot. And if he does win, the only thing that he's going to be able to do is whatever the leadership of the House tells her to do. That's it, pure and simple. Yeah, there was a biblical reference here. He actually used a Bible verse from the character he portrayed in the movie Pulp Fiction. When he talks about vengeance and furious anger. We have to channel the great vengeance and furious anger we have for this administration into votes at the ballot box. We got stuck with Trump. We don't want to get stunk with another chump. So vote for the Democrats. But they don't identify one. I didn't see the graphic. But it's a radio ad, so there wasn't it's a radio ad, so there was no graphic. Don't mention Ossoff's name here. I mean, they could have at least said, vote for the guy with the girlfriend in medical school at Emory. So Samuel L. Jackson's commercial talks about furious anger and vengeance. Do you know what Ossoff's campaign slogan is? Make Trump furious. That is the campaign slogan, the Democrat in Georgia 60. Make Trump furious. Here is John in Alpharetta, Georgia. Welcome. I'm glad you waited, sir. How are you doing?
Mega dittos, Rush. First-time caller.
Great to have you.
Thank you. I've been listening to all the discussion of the last few callers, and they're absolutely right. One of the things that wasn't mentioned, however, was the last time Price ran, he won by something like 63% to 30-some%. He just, got that much support from the conservative base in the 6th District. Ossoff is from a very small, there's only a small segment of northwest DeKalb County from which Ossoff hails from. And the rest of it is basically North Fulton, Cherokee, and then the eastern part of Cobb County. And most of that is conservative. I know a couple precinct workers who said that very few, in the general election, very few people in the precincts actually voted. You're looking at maybe 10, 15% actually came out and voted.
So that's why Trump only won it by a point?
That's right. And I don't know why they didn't come out. Maybe they...
I can figure that out. They just didn't think Trump's a conservative. They were probably part of the Never Trump dyed-in-the-wool conservative. So the question is, look, they're probably all going to come out tomorrow, but look at how many ways they're dividing their vote. There's 11 Republicans on that ballot.
Right. I'm going to support a guy named Judson Hill. He's a former state senator, really fine individual. But you're absolutely right. They're going to split the vote among all those Republicans. But, like you said earlier, they do have some other Democrats who probably pick up some votes rather than Ossoff getting them. But Ossoff, I see him as just a willing pawn. What does he think he's going to do when he gets up there? Basically, Pelosi's going to tell him to shut up, sit down, and vote the way I tell you. And that's it. He's all for Obamacare. He's even said that in his advertising.
Well, that's all true. You're a very brilliant guy. I just brilliantly made that point myself. So happy to welcome you to the Brilliant Club. But I don't think that should take anything away from the guy. Look, he's running for office. We all know he's a pawn. We all know what's invested in the guy. We all know what the Democrats are going to use him for. And he does, too. He has willingly accepted the assignment. I don't think this guy's being fooled, but I don't think that they've made him believe he's going to be the next House Speaker in 5 or 10 years. He knows exactly what he's doing. Look at his slogan. They're running ads for the guy that never even mentioned his name. Samuel L. Jackson's radio ad said, vote for the Democrat Party, not even vote for this guy. This guy's campaign slogan is make Trump furious. This guy's just waiting for his wife to grad med school, and then they're off and running. He's pretty much admitted it. And to each his own. I, L. Rushbaugh, do not mistake any of that for any criticism. I'm just engaging in observation and analysis here. You're, of course, right. The guy is a pawn. He simply serves as a placeholder. If he can win, believe me, he isn't going to get any credit. I mean, he'll go out there and he'll take the stage and he'll do the acceptance speech and he'll thank all the people. But he's not going to be treated as a conquering hero. The Democrat Party will be presented as coming back. The Democrat Party will be represented as taking the reins of power again. So he's, I'm sure, fully aware of how he has been recruited and what his purpose here is. And he knows full well that if he can come through as they have set forth at the Democrat leadership, then whatever they are, good things will happen to the guy. I appreciate the call, John, very much. George in Dartmouth, Massachusetts, you're next. Great to have you here. How are you doing?
Well, Operation Chaos dittos, Rush, and I'll just tell you, I'm going to make the host look good, right, because that's our job as callers. So if you remember when Obama won in 2008, you wanted Obama to fail. Not Obama, but his policies.
Right.
And the media ripped into you.
Oh!
Like, unbelievable.
They're still
right?
ripping into me for it. They're still ripping into me, George.
Absolutely. But so now what's the mainstream media doing and all the higher education and college? They want Trump to fail, except they're putting more action into it, i.e., I think advocating some of these rallies, some of the folks that go, the college campuses, the riots and the fires and all that other stuff, they're actually going a step further. But yet, it was okay to blame you, right? But now, they're even going further with polls to try to affect the Trumpsters that voted for him, which I think is sort of your Operation Chaos in reverse. So they're taking your playbook year after year, but yet you get chastised, but it's okay for them.
Well, which I have explained before, and I'm going to do it again today. For example, when their authority figure wins, you must bow down to it, no matter who you are. Because the only authority they acknowledge is themselves. And in the case you're talking about, it was Obama. The authority is not the Constitution. The authority is not American law. The authority is whoever is leading the progressive movement, and by definition, whoever wins the presidency as a community organizer is going to be the leader of the progressive movement. So all authority was vested in him. Here I came 1 week before he was inaugurated, saying, I hope he fails. I was committing an unpardonable sin. So they had to go out and trash me as anti-American, anti-Constitution. It's never heard of. We've never seen somebody hoping that a newly elected president fails. We should all get behind a newly elected because we all want the country to succeed. That was the refrain. Now we fast forward to 2016 and the Trumpster wins. And all of that mysteriously is thrown out. And now there is no unifying behind the president for the good of the country. Now the left is demanding that not only Trump fail, that he be gotten rid of and replaced by someone that is from their side of the aisle. Ideally, they don't respect the authority of the American presidential election because it didn't go their way. And so they are perfectly fine in their own mind with trying to destroy Trump because their authority is not the election result. Their authority is not the Constitution. Their authority is progressive leadership, progressive ideals, progressive policy. And it was defeated. Well, that's unacceptable. We simply do not accept that we lost the election, and so we must overturn it. We must either paralyze the president or overturn his presidency. And that's what's going on. So for them, it is heroic to destroy Trump. It's not about doing what's best for America. It never is with these people. It's about doing what they demand. It is about their authority being the only authority and their authority dominating. And so there is, in their minds, there's no hypocrisy here. I was not respecting the lone authority of progressivism. I was respecting the authority of the Constitution because I feared Obama was going to stealthily undermine it. I was right. They want to be able to totally ignore it at all times. And we're back. Rush Limbaugh, the cutting edge of societal evolution. Okay, time to get started on the thrust of the program that I promised earlier, and that is what actually is happening in America, why the news media looks the way it does, why the news every day is the way it is, why you think, despite winning the election, we are continuing to lose the country. And I want to start with this. And I acknowledge I've been through some of this before, so I acknowledge I'm repeating it, but it's crucial. It is important. I had a couple calls yesterday referencing this, and it reminds me that, because some people had not heard it, and others who did hear it say that it helped them better understand what's going on than anything ever had. So I'm going to delve into it again. I want to start with my contention here that contrary to what I have thought over the years and what many others have thought, that the leadership of the left, the progressive movement, is in the Democrat Party. It no longer is. The Democrat Party is an arm of the media The Democrat Party is where leftist ideology is implemented in terms of legislation, but it's not where the energy, the intellectual energy and the actual physical energy of what's happening in the American left is occurring today. The leadership of the American left is found in the media. It's found in the people who pay for the media, who sponsor it, and who are the media, the reporters, the producers, and from where they came, journalism schools and other educational institutions around the country. The other arm of this movement is the followers. They're also bought and paid for with donors like George Soros and Tom Steyer and any number of others. And they are college students. They are professionally paid protesters and agitators who will show up and be bussed in anywhere they're told to go to raise hell and represent the resistance. Now, to illustrate where the Democrat Party is in all this, if the Democrat Party were the center of this movement would be in big trouble. Yesterday, the new chairman of the Democrat National Committee, Tom Perez, who is as ultra-left as anybody in America is, he was Obama's Secretary of Labor. The DNC, Democrat National Committee, had their annual Come Together Fight Back tour. And it's traveling around the country as they attempt to put the DNC back together after the debacle that was the 2016 campaign and the Hillary election and all the hacks, Podesta's emails, the DNC rigging the primary for Hillary against crazy Bernie. They've cleaned everybody out of there. They've got a new chairman, and he's on a nationwide tour. And yesterday he was booed and hounded off the stage in Portland, Maine. The chairman of the Democrat National Committee was sent packing while he was attempting. Now, you don't hear about this. What you hear is that when Republican elected officials go home for town halls, that there are 2-hour protests and their own voters are showing up to give them hell and to demand why they're not doing this and why they're not doing that. And you are led to believe that people who voted for Republicans are livid and outraged, and that's not what's going on. The professional protester movement that's bought and paid for and bussed in, they are who's showing up at Republican town halls. The same thing happened to this Tom Perez guy, but you don't hear about it. This is simply an online video that the Daily Caller found and has published. Claire Cummings, a leader of the Maine Young Democrats, said, regardless of why you showed up today, you showed up for a reason. Something compelled you to find the space and time to be here, and I want you to ask yourself what that reason is. Maybe it's because you love a certain senator from Vermont. Maybe you came through because you're curious about the new DNC chairman, the future of the Democrat Party. They booed the guy off the stage. He's not popular. He's not a big-time celebrity. He's not looked at as the future of the party because the people that showed up still love Crazy Bernie, and they wish that Crazy Bernie's forces had won, and Crazy Bernie has the answers, and that's all these people care about. This Perez guy was humiliated and shamed out of this place. Dianne Feinstein heckled at town hall for not being left-wing enough. This from Breitbart. Senator Di-Fi heckled by activists at a town hall meeting in San Francisco on Monday. She was accused of not doing enough to stand up to the Trump administration and not being liberal enough. She turns 84 in June. She was booed, she was jeered, and she was told to retire at a meeting in her hometown after she rejected the idea of a total takeover of health care by the federal government. And by total takeover, these people mean single payer. Oh, reminds me, there's a bogus poll going around that shows that a majority of Americans now favor single payer. That's also to undermine Trump and to take advantage of whatever got screwed up in repealing and reforming Obamacare. So Di-Fi practically booed off the stage. The new Democrat National Committee chairman was booed off the stage. During the brief amount of time this guy had to speak, an act of God happened. The American flag fell over. right as this guy was speaking and trying to stem-wind these people into whatever he wanted them to get excited about, the American flag fell over. An act of God, I would say. And then shortly after that, the guys hooted out of the building. Here's another story on it from the Washington Free Beacon. Democrat National Committee Chairman Tom Perez received boos on Monday night when a guest speaker suggested that maybe some of the attendees showed up to see him speak, but most of them didn't want to hear him. They wanted to hear Crazy Bernie. New York Times reporter Jeremy Peters went on to say that the lack of the Democrat Party's leadership is so overwhelming and crippling. There is no leadership. There is such a vacuum at the top of the Democrat Party. The sclerosis in the Democrat Party is so overwhelming and crippling. They do not have a bench. They do not have leaders. And it's not hard to find these stories. The Democrat Party lost over 1,200 seats since 2008, 2010. The Democrat Party lost the presidential election. Hillary Clinton, the vaunted heroine, lost. The Democrat Party's in a world of hurt. So ask yourself, if this is true, and it is, then how the hell is the news the way it is every day? If the Democrat Party's in a world of hurt, why isn't the Republican Party running around with a glow of victory all over their faces? If the Democrat Party's in such a world of hurt, why are so many people who appear to be Democrats running around all over America like they run this place and shutting down anybody they disagree with? And why are universities helping them? And why are corporations helping them? At Arizona State University, students were given the option of taking the final exam on Thursday or protesting Trump for the same credit. By the professor, they were given this option. In Berkeley, Trump protesters versus Trump supporters, violence, bloodshed, not much was done to stop it. The cops decided it was going to happen anyway. Why get in the middle of it? Let it play out. All over the country, the media is making sure that that's the America you see. The media is making damn sure you're not hearing about the problems of the Democrat Party. You're not seeing the vacuum of power. You're not seeing the fact that it's become Jurassic Park. You are not seeing, you're not told how many seats the Democrat Party is losing. You are not told how much of this country has rejected them. You were not told that the Democrat Party is basically a party of urban cities and the rest of the country has disowned them and disbanded them and wants no part of them. You haven't been told the Democrat Party really isn't a national party anymore. You're not told any of that. Instead, what you are shown is that the country apparently hates Donald Trump, and you are to conclude from that that the country prefers Democrats. The country doesn't. The country has rejected Democrats in droves for the last 6-8 years. But the daily pictures in the drive-by media say just the opposite. The daily pictures of the drive-by media say the American people have voted for Trump now dislike him, now hate him, now want him out of office, now realize they made a mistake. And if this guy in Georgia wins in the election today, and of course tomorrow's the news day afterwards, that's what's going to be the coverage all day long. Even though none of it's true. Many of the anti-Trump protests are bought and paid for, just like we learned during the campaign they were bought and paid for. Nothing is as real as it's being portrayed to you. However, the anti-Trump left is real. It does exist, and who and what they are is crucially important for you to understand. And that is next. And welcome back. It's great to have you, Rush Limbaugh and the Excellence in Broadcasting Network at 800-282-2882. Email address lrushbo@eibnet.us. Let me interrupt. I'm going to take some calls here, and at the top of the next hour, we're going to get into the item I portrayed as next, and that is, who is the progressive movement? What are they really all about? Why is what they are doing happening? And what does it really mean? And for this, I'm going to bounce again off of a piece, frontpagemag.com by Daniel Greenfield. But back to the phones, because people have been waiting patiently. Mark in Houston, welcome. Glad you waited. How are you doing, sir?
Phenomenal. Thank you, sir. I wanted to just say these last two little elections were proof enough and confirmation enough for me that the media just does not need Hillary Clinton to lose an election. They're doing it all by themselves. And I'm comfortable with tomorrow's outcome today, as I was with Kansas's election.
You're in Houston, Texas. It's somewhat removed from Georgia 6. Why are you so confident out there, Mark?
Because the media is losing. It's a battle now is the media and a few elite Republicans and the Democrat leadership party against the populace who voted for Donald Trump.
Right.
The protesters, especially the ones that are getting paid, that is poetic on the capitalistic side.
Yeah, I see your point there. But I'm fascinated by your perception that the media is losing. Do you think the low information voters out there think that?
I think they're tired of it. We're all tired of the media, and when they say something, we automatically know it's wrong. Well, I look at what the media says and who they stand behind, and I automatically go to the next.
Yeah, I know. Look, I agree with you. Intellectually understand you. I also have seen the media poll standings. The media's approval numbers are single digit, and yet everywhere I go, everybody quotes something they saw in the media as though it's gospel. I don't have people coming up to me every day saying, did you see the latest media lie today? They don't say that. Hey, Rush, did you see what was in the New York Times? Did you see what Drudge linked to? They believe it. Even though the media ranks very low in personal approval, business approval, respect, admiration, all that, people still quote them each and every day. We have to subdivide the country. I mean, when every virtually every network except one is showing pictures from sun up to sundown and all night long of this country supposedly opposing Trump, hating Trump, rejecting Trump, violently trying to overthrow and stop Trump. Do you believe, Mark, that most Americans are rejecting that and don't believe it and realize or understand what the media is doing?
Because the media is the ones that covered for them when they were lying and pulling off their shenanigans and doing all their conniving chicaneries, I call it. They were allowing them to get away with whatever they wanted to get away with, and they never held their feet to the fire. And you know what? We had enough. We all had enough of that. I want them to hold the Republicans' feet to the fire as well. A conservative, I want to hold his feet to the fire as well.
Well, yeah, that's another story, too, and it's a relevant part of the story. But the Republicans don't fit with my focus today, and that is I don't know what you call it. I hate calling them progressive because they prefer it, but I'm doing it because it's not the Democrat Party leading this. It's not that important. It's not that big a deal, but I am the mayor of Realville, and reality matters to me. The Democrat Party is in a world of hurt. In terms of the business it is in a world of hurt. And if it didn't have the media, then it would be in no man's land. Now, what I mean again by this is I've always portrayed the media as the willing accomplices of the Democrat Party. That means that I've been placing the intellectual and ideological energy and firepower in the Democrat Party. That's not where it is anymore. The leftist movement, liberalism, progressivism, whatever you want to call it, the intellectual leadership, ideological leadership of that is found in the media and in the academy, the faculties at various universities. That is where the motivation, the inspiration, the education, the instruction for young leftists is occurring. And the media presents the pictures that suffice as the news every day, that is presented as evidence that what they think and believe is happening and that a majority supports it. That's a fundamental factor of this you dare not ignore. The media presents its news every day as though whatever they're mad at, they're upset about, whatever flaws Trump has, the fact that they're reporting it means a majority of the country feels the same way. It isn't true. It's nowhere close to being true. But there's only one television network presenting the opposite point of view, and that's Fox. And they even gum up their own works by trying to be fair and having a bunch of drive-by media people on as analysts and guests. So they watered down their own opposition in their effort to be seen as fair and balanced. There is no such effort made at CNN or MSNBC for such fair. And whenever they invite conservatives on, it's to ridicule them, it's to laugh at them, it's to pound them into the dirt. And so, I gotta see the clock here. But the news-consuming public, which is not highly attuned as we are, not ideologically oriented, they just see what's presented. And it's a problem. And I'm trying to explain, help people identify it and get past it. Don't go away. Who are they? What is their objective? How are they attempting to pull off these objectives? The American left. All of that coming up right after this obscene profit break here at the top of the hour. Won't be long either. With talent on loan from God, it's Rush Limbaugh, the EIB network, and the fastest 3 hours in media. We are back at it. Great to have you here. And once again, the telephone number, 800-282-2882. Ladies and gentlemen, when I first attempted to explain my questions and interpretation of what's going on, I sought to use an analogy. And it was 2 weeks ago now. And I was bouncing off a piece by Daniel Greenfield at Front Page Nag called The Civil War is Here, which I'll get to in just a second. This analogy, I got more feedback on this than I've had in a long time about anything from people who said that did more to help me understand who the left is and who you're talking about than anything I've heard recently. I want to run through it again because it's ideal today, the news being what it is, with a special election in Georgia, the news about how vacant and empty the Democrat Party really is, how the Democrat Party is not the energizing agent behind the anti-Trump movement, the anti-America movement today. They're simply willing participants in it. They've ceded control to the media and academia. But for all of this time that this has been going on, one of the things that I have been doing as host of this program for 30 years, it'll be 30 years in August, and one of the things that I've been doing is constantly seeking the simple explanation, because I believe there is one, a simple explanation of the left. Not only for me, but for you, the audience. And I've come up with many attempts, done many attempts in many various ways of explaining it, gotten close, but I've never, in my own mind, really nailed it. Because it is complex. But one of the things I try to do is make the complex understandable. And the thing that I had noticed above all else in this current go-round is how the left is refusing to respect any authority. And I don't mean police authority and disciplinary authority. I'm talking constitutional authority. As I said yesterday, it's a miracle that we are still the country we were founded to be. We're the only country so founded. We're the only country founded on the premise that the people of the country run it and that they are created in freedom. And that the natural yearning of this God-given creation is the pursuit of happiness and life and liberty. No other place on earth has ever enshrined its existence as such. And we have a piece of paper, multiple pieces of paper that define this, decree this. And for hundreds of years, 200 plus years, every leader we have had has respected the authority and the uniqueness of the Constitution. And it's amazing to me that we haven't lost it in this period of time. It's amazing to me that in our 200 and some odd years, we have not elected somebody who literally didn't respect the Constitution, tore it up, threw it aside, and created a tyrannical dictatorship, which is the history of humanity in the world. Most people live in tyranny, live in bondage, live in poverty. United States, the lone exception, and those that we have inspired since our founding. Great Britain may be an exception, Magna Carta, but I don't want to get off in the weeds on that. You get my drift, that we have had throughout our history this silent acknowledgement that there is a greater authority that defines this country and keeps it glued together, and that is the Constitution, and that's what is at stake now. Because, folks, we are alive at a moment in our history where an entire political movement is seeking to deny and eliminate that authority. The thing that many people have feared since the founding is literally happening today. A total rejection of the Constitution, a rejection of the authority of election outcomes, the authority of any contest in which there are winners and losers, the acknowledgement that whatever our differences, we're all in this together in a common culture with common objectives, common goals, all oriented toward the preservation and growth of this wonderful country. We have lost that. And we are up against a movement now which seeks to undermine what has survived over 200 years, the Constitution and the United States. And at the top of the list of these characteristics is the total abandonment of authority. And in attempting to analogize this, a couple of weeks ago I came up with the following expression, or monologue, if you will, and I'll shorten it here. But as I look at the American left today, and the progressive movement, their rejection of all authority except theirs. The comparison is inescapable to Sharia Islam. In Islam, in Sharia Islam, there is no authority but Islam. And it is a core tenet that the ruler must be obeyed as long as he complies and enforces Islam, Sharia Islam. If he strays, then he must be killed or done away with, as in Anwar Sadat straying and making peace with Israel. He was assassinated. Now, in this analogy, if Islamists, Sharia Islamists, are in the role of Democrats today, in the role of progressives and leftists, then the rest of America assumes the role of the GOP. That is, we proclaim that our commitment to tolerance means that we have to make room at the table for everybody. We respect the authority of the Constitution. When we lose elections, we respect that that's what happens. We acknowledge that we lost. We set about trying to change whatever factors made us lose and change it, try to win. But we do not throw the system out. We don't blame the system. We don't trash the system. And we do not try to destroy the system simply because it rejected us. We try to find ways back into the winning column. It doesn't happen in Islam. You stray, you're gone. Sharia Islam. If you don't obey 1,000% of the time, you're history. Sharia Islam makes no room at their table for anybody that's not one of them. They're not interested in tolerance. They're not interested in coexistence. They're not interested in moderation. They're not interested in cooperation. They're interested in only their singular authority and investing their authority in the ruler of the day. The Islamist analogy might make it easier to understand the left. It's not that Islamists have no respect for authority. It is that they believe there is no authority outside their own belief system. There is no opportunity for debate. There's nothing to debate. You're either a believer or an infidel, and there is no tolerance for the infidels. So in the modern day analogy, there's no tolerance for Republicans. There's no interest in moderating, so the Republicans will be brought into the fold. You either accept it and do what is demanded, or you're out. Anything but you, anything but what you believe, everything is illegitimate, including Trump's winning the presidency or Mitt Romney winning or George W. Bush winning. It's all illegitimate. You respect none of it. You undermine everything that is not your authority. You overthrow it. You obey none of it. You attempt to destroy and undermine every aspect of your authority that has been shunted aside. When they are in power, the Democrats, when they're in power, they pretend it's because their beliefs are a popular mandate. When they are not in power, their beliefs dictate that they delegitimize those who are in power. And that's what we're up against today. We are up against a quasi-Sharia Islam in American progressivism. I think they're very close in methodology to terror organizations without the terror. The Democrats don't do mass murder terrorism, of course, but they do community organizing, the core tactic of which is direct action. Direct action is basically extortion by legal or illegal means. Direct action is whatever is necessary to dominate. Direct action is whatever is necessary to overthrow the authority that isn't you. You never agree with it. You never accommodate it. You never accept it. It's all illegitimate. Trump is illegitimate. His cabinet is illegitimate. Gorsuch is illegitimate. Any further judge he appoints, illegitimate. Any decision that they come up with, legal, illegitimate. In Georgia 6, if the Democrat wins tomorrow, it's going to be said because there's a popular mandate in America that is opposing Trump and is now willing once again to embrace the authority that is represented by the Democrat Party. They might do physical threats or protests that stop people from speaking or business from operating when they lose, and they're doing that daily today. They're trying to shut down universities. They're trying to shut down free speech. They're trying to shut down any activity that is outside their authority. There is no way to cooperate. There is no way to cross the aisle. There is no way to show that Washington can work. It cannot work in their minds if they are not running it. It cannot run. It cannot work if their authority is not absolute. They do not share their authority. They do not moderate it. They do not welcome outsiders in, only if you convert. And at the same time, they do everything they can to delegitimize everybody and everything that is not them. It is only Republican presidents who are idiotic clowns and need Svengali brains behind them to make them work. For Ronald Reagan, it was James Baker. For George W. Bush, it was Karl Rove. For Donald Trump, it's Steve Bannon. Barack Obama had no such brain. He was the brain. He was the final, the only authority. Everybody who worked for him was on their knees daily, celebrating and praying and thanking and hoping he never went away. But there was nobody ever any smarter, nobody ever even equal to him, nobody ever even in his league. Republican presidents, dolts, idiots, clowns, incapable of getting out of bed without some smart guy in the back of the room that nobody sees directing the movement. And that person is never elected and therefore is illegitimate. Bannon must go. Bannon represents the greatest threat because he doesn't respect the authority of the Democrat Party of the American left, and he's guiding Trump. Trump is just an empty vessel. He's a womanizing, misogynist pig. Bannon must be destroyed. And if we destroy Bannon, we destroy Trump because we've destroyed Trump's brain. It's identical to the way totalitarian movements around the world operate, be they banana republics or massive communist enterprises like the Soviet Union or Sharia Islam. Now ponder all that. I take a brief time out here, and I'll incorporate all of this with points made by Daniel Greenfield in his now famous piece that I have made famous, Front Page Mag a couple weeks ago, and he's got a follow-up that's just as good. Well, I will also cherry pick. Don't go anywhere. We're continuing before you know it. As we said last week, the American left trying to delegitimize every branch of government. The presidency, well, that's not real. It was stolen by the Russians. Supreme Court, that's not real. Gorsuch is not real. That was stolen by changing the rule. Nuclear option. That's how it works. The American left has rejected all forms of authority it does not control. They have rejected the outcome of the last two presidential elections won by Republicans. They have rejected the judicial authority of the Supreme Court when its decisions don't accord with its agenda. It rejects the legislative authority of Congress when it's not dominated by the left. It rejected the Constitution so long ago that it hardly bears mentioning. It was for total unilateral executive authority under Obama, and now it's for states unilaterally deciding what laws they will follow, as long as that involves defying immigration laws under Trump, not following them under Obama. So, for example, Trump's new immigration law, what's springing up? Sanctuary city after sanctuary city. Even new ones are springing up in defiance of Trump, in rejection of authority, in rejection of American law, in rejection of the outcome of the election, refusal to accept it. Because there is no authority other than their own, just like Sharia Islam. The left was for the total sacrosanct authority of the Senate when it held the majority. Now the Senate is outmoded when the Republicans took over. It was all for Obama defying the orders of federal judges, no matter how well grounded in existing law, and it is for federal judges overriding anything Trump does. When they have the presidency and they have total authority, whatever the courts do is perfectly fine. When they lose the presidency and do not have the authority and refuse to accept it, then the federal judiciary must come in and deny that authority, that is the president, resulting from the authority of the election as defined by the Constitution. The election itself is not respected because of Russia and tampering. So you see how this works. There's no way to compromise with this. There's no way to accommodate it. There's no way to even tolerate it. They are not tolerant. They're the exact opposite of what they claim to be. These are the people that do not tolerate a single thing. That is not something in which they have authority. There is no form of legal authority the left accepts as a permanent institution, including the Constitution. And that's why we are on the cusp of grave danger here, which I have been trying to point out since the day after the election in November. The American left, the Democrat Party, however you want to refer to it, they only utilize forms of authority selectively when they control those forms. But when government officials refuse the orders of the duly elected government because their allegiance is to an ideology whose idea and agenda is in conflict with the president, that's not activism, that's not protest, politics, civil disobedience. Mr. Greenfield calls what is happening on the left today treason, this blanket rejection of all authority, which is derived from the Constitution. The total wanton disobeying and ignoring and undermining of the Constitution as a legal matter is indeed treason. We haven't charged anybody with it in decades. We haven't used it. We haven't barely even mentioned it. So when somebody does, it's kind of shocking. When the left loses Congress, what do? They consolidate their authority in the White House. When they lose the White House, they shifted their center of authority to federal judges and unelected government officials, the deep state. Each defeat led radicalized Democrats to relocate from more democratic to less democratic institutions, wherever they could go, to assert their authority and thwart the authority of the Constitution is where they go. And it isn't hypocrisy. Hypocrisy happens all the time in politics. That's not what this is. Hypocrites still operate within the system, respecting the authority. That is the Constitution. The left today has no allegiance to the system unless they're running it. And if they're not running it, then the system itself is illegitimate and needs to be further delegitimized. It accepts no laws other than those dictated by its ideology. And people, what happened to the Democrat Party? It's the right way to put it. The Democrat Party has become radicalized by the left. The left was not radicalized by the Democrat Party. The Democrat Party today bears no resemblance to the Democrat Party of John Fitzgerald Kennedy or even Lyndon Johnson in the 1960s. No comparison. They have been fully radicalized by radical leftists. It means that their first and foremost allegiance is to an ideology, not the Constitution. And I mean that comment aimed right between the eyes of my old buddy Ted Koppel, which I will explain in due course. So my old buddy Ted Koppel is interviewing another old buddy, Sean Hannity, for CBS Sunday Morning Show. And Ted Koppel tells Sean Hannity that the problem with Sean Hannity and people like him is that he has destroyed the news. And the way he's destroyed the news is by creating an audience of people who don't care about facts. Yeah, the only people that listen to conservative talk radio or watch Fox News, those people, they only care about ideology. They don't care about fact, and that has destroyed the media, says Ted Koppel, because in the process, there isn't a common set of facts anymore, and the conservative audience doesn't care about them anyway. The truth of the matter is, ladies and gentlemen, the radicalized left is the group that has an allegiance only to its ideology and is not concerned with facts at all. They make them up if they need to support their lone authority, which is anything but the Constitution. Now, they will use the Constitution when they are in power. When they are out of power, they will ignore it, and they will delegitimize whatever part of the Constitution they need to delegitimize the opponents. They will delegitimize an election. They are nothing but ideologues, pure, thoroughbred, undiluted, raw ideologues. Facts and reality are irrelevant, particularly when the facts and the reality are counter to their authority. It's just the exact opposite of what my old buddy Ted Koppel said to Sean Hannity. Where there is an allegiance to truth and fact is right here and right now on this program and everywhere else in conservative media. It's the only place, in fact, in American media today where there is an allegiance to real facts and real news. And what we are up against is the delegitimization the left is attempting of these very facts and this very reality, the attempt to undermine it and overthrow it. And since we now stand in the way of the left's unilateral ability to define the facts, to present the facts, to ignore certain facts, we have become an enemy which must be delegitimized. We must be undermined. We must be attacked and ridiculed and overthrown. And this is why a guy on the radio like me can be treated no differently than a president with real, genuine power, with profiles done designed to ruin reputations and so forth. That's who the American left is. And it's identical to what happens in Sharia Islam to the non-believers and the infidels. And that is what we're up against here, folks. We're not up against people who are fellow adherents to the Constitution, who have a differing point of view, with whom we might want to debate and try to find some common ground, because that is not the least bit of interest to them. We are not legitimate. We are not worthy of time. Our beliefs are not worthy of anything but being pounded into dust. And this is why I just will speak for myself. I am over it. I'm fed up with Republicans who want to cross the aisle and find some common ground and show that we can work together so that Washington can be shown to work. It's all BS. It's a suicide pact to try to get into a legitimate power-sharing agreement with these people, because that's not at all anything they are interested in. Their first and foremost allegiance is to an ideology, not facts, not the Constitution, not our country. Their allegiance is not to America. Their allegiance is not to the Constitution. They do not revere it. They do not respect it. They do not respect, nor are they in awe of our system of government. All of those things, the Constitution, the country, our system of government, are only to be used as vehicles for advancing their ideology and their authority. And this is why it's impossible to compromise with them. Our system of government was designed to allow different groups to negotiate their differences. But those differences were supposed to be based around finding shared and common interests, such as the values ordained in the Declaration, for example. The most profound of these supposed shared interests was that of a common country based around central civilization values, a common culture found nowhere else in the world. The left isn't interested. The left is in the process of replacing these founding ideas with completely, radically different notions and principles. The left has rejected the primary importance of America. And in place of the primary importance that is America, it is now the primary importance of their ideology, with no tolerance for anything but. As a result, the American left that you see every day protesting and rioting, objecting, resisting, they share little in the way of interests or values with us. And that's where we are, folks. That's who these people are. That's what we're up against. And that's why this election in Georgia is important tomorrow, because the outcome is not that big a deal. In the balance of powers, it's not a big a deal. Democrats win it, big whoop. But that's not how it's going to be portrayed. I just saw CNN. Verdict on Trump presidency, Georgia election. When I say the election tomorrow, I mean we're going to get the results tonight, the media coverage tomorrow. When I say tomorrow, I'm talking about the way this is going to be portrayed. The election's going on right now. Hopefully people are showing up in droves and not voting for this Democrat, because this election is not at all going to be reported on as the balance of power. If the Democrat loses, it will be portrayed. It doesn't mean anything. It's just one seat. The Democrats weren't going to change anything by winning this seat. If the Democrat wins, it's going to mean everything about Trump no longer is real. Everything about Trump is now delegitimate. It's going to be said that the American people all voted in Georgia. The spirit of the country voted, and it rejected Trump, and it admitted it made a mistake, and it now wishes it had the election over. America wishes Hillary was in the White House. That's going to be the message, and more. If this Ossoff guy wins, it looks like a long shot to get 51% in such a crowded field. But all the money is from outside the state. All the energy is from outside the district for the Democrat. There isn't any energy in this district for the guy, not much. It's all from Hollywood. It's all from Washington. It's all from San Francisco, a lot of it from Silicon Valley. But there isn't much energy for this guy who doesn't even live in this district and can't even vote there. There's no energy for this guy where this district actually is. But his victory wouldn't even be his victory. This would be a victory of the American left. They will totally claim that victory. This guy is going to become a vessel. He's going to become a placeholder. He's not going to become a hero. The coverage, the way it's presented, will be heroic, and what it's said to represent. They're setting it up now as this election is a verdict on the Trump. Now, they put a question mark after it. They're hedging their bets at CNN because they're not sure the guy's going to pull it off. But if he does, the stories are written, I guarantee you. Be back. Get back to your calls after this. Don't go away. Welcome back, folks. Great to have you here on the Rush Limbaugh program. Remind me, I'm going to make a note myself. Hey, Siri, remind me to mention the Seton Motley piece tomorrow.
Okay, I'll remind you.
All right, now you have to remind me, Mr. Snerdley, what is it? He's got a brilliant piece here on what the new direction of the media is. And essentially, the media is no longer just doing what they're doing for public consumption. It's for social media consumption. The media is doing and writing and broadcasting what it does to get the treatment of viral spreading on social media. So the media catering to Silicon Valley now. That the real amplification of the news is on social media. Look, I'm really paraphrasing this. That's why I'll spend time tomorrow detailing this. Marshall in Warminster, Pennsylvania. Welcome to the program, sir. It's great to have you here.
Hello, Rush. Thank you for taking my call. I just listening to you stating that the Democrat Party has no leadership now. And my question to you is, when you're developing a dependent class, how can you create leadership out of out of this kind of a situation?
I wanted to take your call because on the surface, it's a very good question. Here's his point. The Democrats as a party have been cultivating sponges, cultivating people who don't work, but instead are dependent, cultivating poor people who are minorities, maybe illegal immigrants, under the wild hope that they can all be registered to vote and have a majority of these kinds of people voting in every election, thereby, because they're totally dependent on government, which means Democrats, so you have them for their entire lives. And his question is, once you cultivate that as your base, from where do you get your leaders? Where do you get your actual intellectual, intelligent leaders if you're not creating any in your base? If instead what you're doing is creating a bunch of dependent, mind-numbed robots. And as I say, it's a good question, but the universities are always going to produce almost like an assembly line. Particularly the Ivy League is always going to be producing. Well, at the point, not all of them are electable. I mean, if you look now, the reason the question is important because here you had Obama, he was their savior. I mean, he was God. There was no Svengali, there was no Bannon, there was no really smart guy directing Obama. He was it. And human nature, when Obama's there running everything, they weren't planning for when there wasn't going to be an Obama, even though they knew there wasn't. And now their top two figures are Crazy Bernie and Elizabeth Warren for the next presidency. Where is their bench? Who makes up where are the young, energetic Democrats? They're there. They're out there. They're in the progressive movement somewhere. But I do think they have electoral problems because the Democrat Party, folks, let's face it, the Democrat Party is losing. I know some people are bored with me pointing this out, but look, it's relevant here. It was Obama that was rejected in November. It was Obama's policies, and he put them on the ballot by campaigning for them. He went out campaigning for Hillary, saying her election would continue his great presidency, and it was rejected, and it was sent packing. They've got problems with their real policy agenda. It is rejected when people know what it is and have that chance. And until they get leaders with a different agenda or can lie what the agenda as well as Obama did, then they're going to be in the woods. Mr. President, just say no. Trump's top aides huddling today to discuss whether or not the U.S. should remain part of the Paris Climate Accord. Mr. President, the answer is no. Get nowhere near climate change. Please, the answer is no.